Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted you've all joined us for this webinar, My Professional Development Journey, Back to the Books as part of the Cork Lifelong Learning Festival. Delighted to have Linda, Colin and Virginia here talking about their own journey and how they went back to education at MTU. The message here this morning is that there's always something to learn and never too late to start learning, whether that's in relation to a particular interest or your own career. We all acknowledge that lifelong learning and just doing one course of study in our lifetime is never enough. We all need to acquire fresh knowledge and new skills, and the research would show that there are benefits to this. It can help with your career, it can help with your mental health, you'll be happier, you'll be better connected, and it gives us a better sense of achievement and fulfillment. At MTU, we have many opportunities for lifelong learning, and in the Faculty of Business and Humanities, we have 82 part-time programs ranging from certificates to in digital marketing, food, art, photography, and degrees in business, HRM, and MBAs and HRM and postgraduate, right up to PhD level. So for further information, this is my call to action. Check out our website, mtu.ie. Really looking forward to our speakers, and thanks again for attending this event.
My name is Pat Culhan, and I'm very proud to be the manager of MTU's new Business Academy and work with the team here to bring you today's webinar as part of the 2022 Cork Lifelong Learning Festival. Before we jump into the webinar, I'd like to very, very briefly outline what the MTU Business Academy does and who it's for. As you can see on the slide there, there's two main functions really of the Academy. Firstly, we support and promote a number of executive and professional part-time programs run by the departments and schools in the Faculty of Business and Humanities, like George alluded to. Secondly, the Academy collaborates internally and externally to showcase best practice to identify learning priorities and drive commercial engagement. Who is the Academy for? It's primarily for emerging and established executives and professionals, people with some or many years of experience in the workplace, both those looking to develop within their career path or those looking to change career. With skill shortages in accountancy, business intelligence and analysis, financial advising and risk compliance, for example, it's an ideal time to be launching and developing the Academy. The schools and departments run programs across management, leadership, accounting, finance, human resources, marketing, and much more at various levels, from short certificate courses run over a few weeks to a variety of postgraduate and master's programs such as the MBA, and an increasing number of doctoral students as well. The part-time program portfolio is all about flexibility, allowing individuals to curate their own learning journey from a varied and rich selection of courses. So where do you find out about the programs? You can see them here on our new website. It's mtubusinessacademy.ie. There's over 30 programs across the areas that I touched on there. There's any amount of program detail. You can apply for one of the part-time programs from the site or contact the program coordinator directly. You can also look at our events and the various things we have to offer in the Academy, and you can contact us directly as well. We have a landline number there. We have email address as a form. Also feel free to reach out to me directly, however you like, basically. And I'd encourage you to use our social channels as well. Just for today's event, if you can, and some people have already, look at using hashtag MTU Business Academy to keep the conversation going. As I said, our website is there, mtubusinessacademy.ie. We're on social as well, like I mentioned, and just to finally say, I or Isabel would be delighted to hear from you to discuss ideas, explore collaboration, be it prospective students, somebody in industry, or otherwise. Just a quick thanks to our guest panel, Linda, Colin, and Virginia, and a very special thanks to colleague and host for today, Isabel Rossiter, for driving the Academy's collaboration with the Cork Lifelong Learning Festival, culminating in today's webinar. Over to you, Isabel.
Thanks, Pat. So thanks to Jared and Pat for supporting the webinar today. My name is Isabel Roster and I work in the new Business Academy here in MTU in a communications and coordination role. I feel really passionately about this topic because I came back to education myself as a mature student and a very busy mom. The experience of focusing on my own abilities to achieve my degree after feeling completely out of practice in an academic environment gave me a whole new pathway in life, so much so that I actually never left. I'm still here in CIT now at the MTU community. I'm kind of part of the furniture at this stage, I think. So this webinar itself is taking place, as mentioned, as part of the Cork Lifelong Learning Festival, which we are delighted to play a very small part in. Access to education for all at all stages of life is something all here in MTU feel very strongly about. I'm really excited to talk to my guests today about their journey back into education and how it had an impact on them, their life, and also their career path. So I'm delighted to welcome, and I'm going to add them all, so just excuse me as I'm spotlighting them. I'm going to add Colin Crowley, who works as a pilot at Ryanair, but he's also a lecturer here in the Aviation Studies module, but Colin can tell you a little bit more about himself. Linda O'Connell, who works as a National Online and Media Coordinator for St. Vincent de Paul, and she's also the owner of a digital marketing consulting company called Digi Nomad. And finally, but last but not least, is Virginia Foley, who is the creator of a network empowering females called Up She Rises. So I'm going to ask the guys a little bit more about themselves, and they can introduce themselves a lot better than I did. So we'll discuss a few areas with the panel, and then we'll go on to a brief Q&A session at the end, time permitting, but we'll definitely get to it, I think. So please add any questions to the dedicated question and answers box, and we will get back to them as soon as we can. So everybody's unmuted and ready to go. So we'll head into the question panel there, and what I'll probably do is I'll just put out the question to all panelists, but maybe Linda, you can take it first, and then Colin, and then Virginia, if you don't mind. So can you please tell me a bit about your journey back into education with us here in MTU?
Yep, thanks for having me, Isabel. I would have attended what it was previously the RTC back in the late 90s. I did a course as a mature student in science, and then went on to UCC. But as my life went along, my trajectory changed. I was working with animals and in the zoo environment for a long time, and I just moved to the most complicated animal, humans. And I had struggled a lot with mental health for most of my life. And while I was in college, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul were helping me. And I went off to England to work in England. And again, I was struck with mental health, and I came back to Ireland and started working actually for St. Vincent de Paul 17 years ago, working on computers, and never ever did I believe I'd be sitting behind a computer, but here we are. And but everything, all my skills were self-taught, so I kind of learned on the hoof. I never worked in an office, never worked on websites, nothing like that. So I decided I kind of had suffered terrible imposter syndrome, and that I was winging it. So that if I went back to college and got that piece of paper in my hand, I'd at least be able to say, well, I kind of know what I'm talking about. So I'm back to do the first, I did the digital marketing certificate in 2016. And I don't know what possessed me, but I decided to stay on and do the inaugural year of the digital marketing strategy masters. And I graduated in 2018 from MTU then. So that was kind of the whistle-stop tour of my...
It's definitely a tour though, and it's kind of an interesting pathway really, isn't it? It's pretty traditional, but it's, you know, it's a unique journey specifically to you, so it's great. Colin, your journey is equally as interesting.
So maybe, so I suppose my background, when I left secondary school after my leaving cert, I went work in the family business at home. So we were in the motor trade, and you know, that was back in 2003, and business was going great, and we were in the midst of the Celtic Tiger and everything else, and it was good. You know, I enjoyed it for a number of years, but it was always in the back of my head that it wasn't going to be what I was going to do forever. You know, but at the time it was a good place to be. But then 2007, 2008, as it hit everywhere, the global financial crisis, it I suppose maybe accelerated my thoughts about what am I going to do next. So at the time I had been, I suppose, thinking about returning back to education for a number of years, but had delayed it for various reasons, mostly my own incorrect perceptions. So in 2012, I took the plunge, came back to what was then CIT by night, just came back to do the level 6. I said, I'm going to do the higher cert now, and we'll see what will happen after that. And then did the 6, 7, 8, and then level 9, finished up with the masters. And all the while then, actually while I was doing the level 7, I started doing flight training as well, to become an airline pilot.
You were bored, were you? So you decided to add something.
Yeah, the degree wasn't enough. So yeah, while I was doing that, I did the degree and my flight training as well, part-time. The two of them side by side. And fast forward a couple of years then, started working for the biggest airline in Europe, and came back here then to what is now MTU to do my level 9 masters. And lecturing here now as well, part-time.
And lecturing here now as well. So you didn't leave either. So
No.
You caught the bug as well as me.
That's right, yeah.
So I just wanted to keep it clear, just in case anyone is actually interested in any of the courses that you're doing. I just wanted to highlight. So yours was the higher cert in business. That was the part-time by night. It's under the Department of Management and Enterprise, a level 7 Bachelor of Business. So that was your bachelor degree. Then you went on to do the level 8 Bachelor of Business degree as well. And then you returned then to do your MA in Global Business Practice.
Correct.
So if anyone has any questions about that or the experience of it, then I just kind of wanted to name them just to make sure just people can ask kind of specific questions. So Virginia.
Hello, I'm thrilled to be here as well. It's so interesting to hear other people's path and journey, you know, and mine was not straightforward either. I suppose I went and did my degree in marketing business studies in what was CIT. Then I went off to the States and stayed there longer than I planned to, like about 8 or 9 years maybe. Then I came back to Ireland and I decided, you know, I was working in admin roles. I didn't really get to use the experience I had in the States. Like I had a business, I fell into things over there, came back here and thought everyone would recognize all my skills and experience. And that really wasn't the case, which kind of opened up this big, I just felt stuck in my job. And I suppose my intention of being here today really is for other people to see themselves in me. It wasn't that I had this perfect path or runway to my career. It was really lots of struggles. But I suppose I gave myself permission to come back and go to college. But again, I didn't make it easy on myself. I had a job which was working in administration, supporting startups. And I went back and did the master's in PR at New Media. No, I was pregnant at the time and I was working a full-time job at the time and I was taking annual leave. My employers kindly let me split annual leave and do all sorts of madness to make it happen. And I'm not saying that from a place of pity, I'm saying it from a place of possibility. Like the possibilities that going back to do that master's gave me, not just on a personal level, because it did make me start to believe, know what was possible. I could rewrite my career basically. And I haven't stopped writing that career. So like I did that master's, started reinventing how my workday would look like. And it made me realize, geez, I don't actually have to fit a 9 to 5. I now have this bank of skill and knowledge that I learned through the master's. I can apply it to anything. So that's exactly what I did. I rewrote the hours I work. I rewrote the jobs I'm doing. And it's all self-led and highly, I suppose, the satisfaction in it is very high. I'm not answering to anyone. That's sometimes my downfall too. But I suppose giving myself permission to follow the curiosity back into the books was where my story really took off, you know.
And did the pending baby give you permission to finish your degree?
Just about. It all worked out perfectly. But like all jokes aside, like there's modules and there's topics that I learned in that master's that I didn't think would serve me so much. And now it's coming full circle. Like, you know, I mean, I know this isn't about my personal achievements or anything like that, but I had this idea in my head for the longest time to write a book. And I thought that was so far away from me. Now I'm doing that. And the modules that I found challenging at the time are the very things that gave me the skills to really chase that dream. Like, so yeah. I know that's very aspirational, but I'll be honest, if I hadn't gone back to college, the trajectory could have looked very different for me. And I could have really got stuck in those admin roles, always feeling that there was more for me without taking a bite of it, you know?
And we'll explore, I suppose, the impact it had, because that's definitely like feeding into that a bit as well, of the impact it actually had on your life, I suppose, your career as well. Firstly, I suppose we might just touch on were there any barriers for yourselves? Like it's a really interesting pathway, but was there any barriers or challenges that you guys experienced then when you were making those decisions to come back on part-time? So we might start with you again, Linda.
Barriers, I suppose confidence. I mean, like I'd done lots of courses as such. I hadn't gone back to, as Virginia said, like when you're working full time, it can be quite a challenge trying to juggle your life, both professionally and personally. So I suppose the challenges was first the apprehension of, oh my God, it's been years since I've been in education. I mean, I think I graduated with my degree in 2002. And things have changed so rapidly really in the last decade. So I think for me, it was definitely the balance of trying to hold down a full-time job and be a manager, because I work full-time for a charity, and it never stops. There is no lull time in a way. And then, was I good enough? Was I going to be able to keep up? I mean, there was many the night, I never said it, that I left college in tears, thinking I'm not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm winging it. And it was to try and get over that hump, and again the work-life balance. Because I was also, while I was doing the masters, also I was a board of directors on another charity, and I was doing about 25 hours with them, my full-time job, and also the masters, which I ended up having a ruptured disc in my neck just prior to finishing off my thesis. So like, it's not easy by any means. It's not like you're going to walk in and everything's going to be smooth, but I actually wouldn't change it either. Like,
How do you feel you overcame those barriers then, I suppose, like specifically the confidence issue, maybe, like what would you have felt would have been the way that you kind of overcame them, or was it
I think
naturally?
I think to be honest with you, I felt it was afterwards, like it was after I completed it, like, it's always a kind of a constant battle. Like, I don't know if Zed was one of my lecturers, and he's the SEO expert, and I don't want to embarrass him if he is on, but part of why I did my thesis was, one, to prove that I was trying to make a point that I kind of knew what I was talking about, and the other was kind of to make him feel proud, like, because he put so much effort and time into his students, and was always there to listen. So I was out to prove to myself and to others that I could do this. So it was that trying to believe. It didn't come naturally. It wasn't an easy thing to accomplish, but through different modules, it's not like, oh, you're starting here and you end here. There's an evolution that's happening while you're doing that course. You are changing on an ongoing basis. You step back and look, oh, like, I learned that about myself, and you utilize that for the next step. So they're the challenges that you're integrating on an ongoing basis. But I would feel most of that came when I finished, because it's very hard to see it when you're in it.
It sounded like you didn't have time to think about that and reflect upon it while you were doing it. So that makes sense. Colin, did you yourself kind of experience any barriers to come back, or was it similar to that of Linda, just the
yeah, I suppose it would be quite similar to Linda's story. I mentioned a while ago about my own incorrect perceptions. Like, I remember going back before I came back here to MTU, at the time CIT, and I remember thinking, like, at the time I was working the motor trade, I was fixing cars every day and all that, working as a mechanic. And I remember thinking, when I go back here and step into the classroom, I'm going to be completely out of place. Because I thought everybody else there is going to be probably wearing a suit and tie, and will have come from working in a big company with lots of people in it, and they'll be used to they'll be familiar with all the business jargon and everything. Here's going to be me, having spent the day under the bonnet of a car, completely out of place. But I couldn't have been more wrong, and I think that was really at the time. That, and maybe a lack of confidence in myself at the time. They were the two barriers I think that I would have had. But the first one, feeling that I would have been out of place, I remember I distinctly remember my first night here. It was a Wednesday evening, and I remember going to IT3 and everybody there, we were chatting at the break, and I just thought, your background is similar to mine and your background is similar to mine. And it just became apparent that actually we're all here for the same reason. There was no gradient, which I suppose I found it very welcoming in that sense. And then I suppose the second barrier for me would have been confidence. I had been out of education at the time for almost 10 years since I'd done my leaving cert. So I had no formal education after my leaving cert, and I was thinking, am I going to be able for it? Am I going to be able for writing and researching and all the rest of it? And I suppose the best example I could give there is that it's a process, and you trust it, you go in. And I remember like my first written assignment might have been maybe 300-400 words. And I thought, this is fine, I can write this, no problem. And then by the time you get to secondary, you're writing 2,500 words and you're thinking, I wish I had 3,000 word count because I'm going to go over here, so it's if you trust in the process, and if you commit yourself to it, you'll be able to see yourself being built up along with it. And I think that's one of the most important things. Don't go in thinking that, as I incorrectly did the first night, don't go in thinking I'm going to be out of my depth here, or I can write a 2,000 word essay. Well, of course you can, but we'll build it up. You'll write a 500 word first and carry it on that way. And that's how it builds up. That's how it builds up, or that's how it built up for me, I would say, at least.
Well, that's probably a relief for people to know that their homework on the first week isn't going to be 2,000 word essay.
Yeah.
I do remember myself actually when it got to the stage, and Virginia might agree with this, when it got to the thesis stage at the end of like something especially to do with communications or marketing, it's because you've put so much effort into it, each word is your baby, and then when they turn around and say no, you actually have to cut out 3,000 words out of that, like you're actually devastated. And if you reflect back on that and say from the start I was going to write 20,000 words in a document, you'd think, no way was I going to do that, but actually you end up kind of almost grieving for those 3,000 words that you had to cut out then at the end. So I totally agree with that. That was kind of mirrors my experience actually of it as well. So Virginia, barriers, challenges, and how you overcame them?
Definitely, I suppose the time piece. I didn't really question my own ability in it. I don't know what that says about me, but like I genuinely questioned, how can I justify? It's the mom guilt, isn't it? I was like, how can I justify spending my weekends now not doing the things I was doing? I didn't get to do all week. And it really, for me, the penny drop moment was, okay, there's the return on investment. What will this let me do? But also, what's the cost of inaction? And the cost of inaction for me was huge, that like I can stay stuck where I am and things mightn't change much. And I could be in the same thing for the next 10, 20 years. So like it was that kind of broke down the barriers for me and made me realize, look, it's not for the long term. Okay, I will have to compromise the time I spend with my family. Now I'm like, let me run back and do a course so I can get away from my family. So I'm like, I'm looking at things that I can do again. I'm just kidding. But like really the cost of inaction was huge for me. But the process you speak of there, going from not writing anything to writing all of these things, like that is a lifelong skill that has served me beyond to say, how to write a long letter, or how to write a short letter, that whole thing. It takes a long time to be concise with your words, and that alone in the process of going back to school will serve you forevermore. It really will, like, to be able to be succinct and concise. I'm not doing a great job of that now, but on a document, to have that skill to apply to anywhere is absolutely golden.
So I suppose before we get into the meat of it, which is what impact did it have, I suppose, from doing that and in your wider life, your career, your professional development, is there anything that you would say were the best parts you took from the program itself, or the experience of going back and studying part-time? Linda?
Yeah, the one thing that really stood out for me, and I will be really strong in my words when I say that changed my life, was the professional development module. Which was part of the course. So you can learn all the skills and the knowledge and all that kind of stuff and become an expert in particular fields. But that module alone was like a massive, oh my God, aha moment for me. I'd never heard of Myers-Briggs personality, identifying things, never anything like that before. And when I did that, if I left with anything from the masters, if there was nothing else, it was the learning I got from that, to the realization of, oh my God, I actually now realize why I made the choices in my life, the journeys I took, why it wasn't linear. Because we have this perception when we, you know, in life, that leave school, you go to college, you do this, it's like a train track and it just goes this way. And I have done such weaving snake ladder journey, and it never ends. I think you never stop learning. Like they laugh at me in work, they're going, oh Jesus, she's doing a course again. Like, you know, because you're always trying to improve and better yourself as a person, as a profession. And I think for me, that really, really helped ground me and understand where I needed to go, and also validated what I felt inside my heart and my purpose in life. And then knowing that helped me then develop and move forward. And that's how my part-time business, Digi Nomad, came about, because I realized I want to help people. I want to help people grow in their own business, but also identify where people lack that self-confidence. Virginia, maybe you might come in on board and help bolster that, because a lot of people have so much self-doubt about themselves. They have all the capabilities, all the skills, but inside their head, the dialogue, the imposter syndrome is saying, you're not good enough, you're not going to be able to do it. So I think, yeah, like I couldn't.
It's helped to define that for you.
More about that module alone really was phenomenal for me.
And was that part of the cert, or was it part when you got
it
into
was part of the masters? It was part of the masters. Now, it did nearly kill me because it was massive. It was a huge module. I believe they may have extended the duration that module happens now, because we were the guinea pigs in the inaugural masters. So they learned a lot from us as well about what works and what doesn't work. But for that, yes, it changed my outlook, my confidence, everything about myself. So yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. That's a really good takeaway from a program, I have to say. Colin?
Yeah, I suppose similar actually to what Linda was saying. She was speaking or talking about that module changed her life. I suppose I would take a more broader look at it and say that the whole program changed my life. The reason being, I'd always, since I was very small, wanted to be an airline pilot, and I thought it'd be great to be this, and I always had an enormous interest in aviation and everything else. But just always thought it was the kind of role that, well, that probably won't be me, like, you know, that would be somebody else. So came back to college and went through the various stages, level 6 and onto the level 7 and 8. But it was the confidence that I would have built up doing the programs here at MTU, doing the business courses, and discovering that actually I do have the ability for doing all of these. I came here the first night thinking maybe that I can't. And again, the example about I can't write a 2,000 word essay, but yet here I am now in second year, third year, and I can. And the confidence that it would have given me throughout my number of years here, that made me look back and think, well, you know, if I could do this, maybe I could look at aviation and become a pilot. And that's how, I suppose, coming back here to MTU and returning to education is, I would say, was the first step in me getting to my dream job, because it's my time here would have given me the confidence and would have kind of given me the grounding to go on and maybe do something else, you know. But apart from that, I was here sometimes 3 nights a week, you know, a minimum, most times of 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week. I used to look forward to it. I used to almost treat it like a social event. There was I was in a fairly tight-knit group. There was maybe 5, 6 of us. And we used to be talking to each other all the time. We're still great friends. We meet up a number of times a year and go out together and so on. But when we were in college, you know, like we used to enjoy coming to see each other every evening. It was a nice, relaxing, busy at times environment. With studying and assignments and everything else, but we used to really enjoy each other's time, each other's company, and then you're doing the whole thing or you're enjoying all of that whilst you're getting a level 6, or whilst you're getting an ordinary degree or an honours degree or a master's or whatever the case may be. But apart from that, in self-fulfillment, I mentioned about the whole confidence issue that I thought before I came back, you know, I might not be able for this, but for me anyway, I can say that it actually almost became addictive. You know, like I was probably halfway through the higher cert and I thought, I'm definitely going to do the honours degree. And then I was going through the honours degree thinking, I'm definitely doing the honour, I was going through the ordinary degree thinking, I'm definitely going to do the honours degree, and so on into the masters. And even now, like, I'm sitting here thinking I will probably do a PhD in the next few years. You know, it's addictive. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have said, absolutely not, that's not going to be for me, like, you know, I won't be able for it, or and so on. But definitely, it's there's multiple positives that I could take away from it.
So literally the poster child for lifelong learning. So
Maybe so, yeah.
yeah, what would you say that were the best parts for you?
Well, for all of us, the common theme here seems to be, you know, there's this thing in psychology, it's a concept called the confidence-competence loop. And we're all actually, that's exactly what we're talking about. And if you're at home wondering, is this all for me? Like, the more you do something and do a tiny thing, the more you believe, oh, I can do it. And that keeps, it's a compound effect. That's obviously happened for all of us, and we're all obsessed with learning now, and also obsessed with sharing it on to others. But for me, I genuinely can say it unlocked in me a love I didn't even know was there, a love for words, a love for being more fluid with my words, and a love for actually finding my own voice in all of that. Like, no, yes, that's turned out to coaching women, having my own business, having a podcast, but there's no fear in it, because it's just a process of refinement, and it's yourself you're refining constantly, and it has a positive effect on all areas of your life, you know. So like, my kids are seeing me do things and they're like, you're crazy or you're cringe, but like underneath it all, they're being shown what's possible, and there are no rules. So like, that's what it's left with me. I suppose it lit a fire in me to just go for it and bring everyone along with me for the journey, you know.
I think if you're a parent and your kid at a certain age doesn't say, Jeannie, Mark, you're cringe. You're doing something
love being
wrong.
cringe. That means I'm winning. Like, if I'm cringe to them, I'm doing something right.
Look, the next question, there might be a small bit of stuff that you've touched on already, because what have you taken away? But the big question, I suppose, is what has that experience of going back into education, what impact has that had on your life? I suppose you're maybe focusing specifically on your career and how it helps you to define that kind of career path for yourselves. Linda?
Well, obviously the self-confidence, but from a career point of view, I wouldn't be the most vocal, I suppose, in work. And I think they're very much married in. You know, I'd go into meetings and everybody, all the heads of function are blabbing away, and they're all using terminology, and I'm like, oh, I have no idea what they're talking about. And then to, as Virginia said, to go in and actually have your own voice heard, that you're going in and you're talking about your area. Because when you don't speak up, I think in a work environment, sometimes, with all due respect, you people who will start talking about your area work, who don't actually have a clue at the end of the day, and you're sitting there going, oh my God, I'm embarrassed for them. But you kind of struggle to say, well, actually, you're wrong. And I think that's what it did for me, and it helped me grow also my department as well, because it was the smallest department in the organization. I was able, following the course, to come away and say how much, if the organization didn't move and do this, how they'd be left behind, and that I'm one person, I'm not superwoman, that these things needed to happen if, say, the organization was to keep up. And also then, again, with Digi Nomad, to see that gap in the industry and also grow that, because, again, professionally, you just gain momentum. You can see, you can evolve. Never ever in my life did I ever accomplish or get an A in anything. You know, I had to work extra hard in school. I didn't go to college when I left school straight away. And suddenly I got a 1-1, and I was like, well, Jesus, they must have made a mistake. You know, is it my paper they corrected? And then I feel embarrassed saying this, but I also won best master student. And again, I went through, oh my God, like, but for work seeing that, because obviously they had helped fund part of the masters, it kind of made me feel confident in work, and that I now was coming from a place of knowing what I was talking about, and that people listened. And I know that sounds really silly and superficial, that
Not at all.
You needed this piece of paper for people to, but I do think it happens. It's twofold. It's confidence in yourself, and other people say, oh, actually, hang on, no, she did very well and she knows what she's talking about. So Yeah, I think that.
The only problem you had, Linda, is that you got your best marketing student, but then they started putting you in for other awards as well, and you won them. So you can't really keep away from the limelight, can you? So Linda was the Network Cork overall winner last year as well, and I think you're in for a finalist in the Business Association as well, Linda, aren't you? So
yeah. Okay.
You're not able to get away from those award ceremonies. That's it now. For life, people are going to be like, "You're really good at winning these things." So I can sign you up. Colin, what would you say? I think you touched on it a little bit already as well with your getting your dream job, which is that's a good soundbite to have.
Yeah.
What would you say would be the impact for you?
I suppose, and again, this will go back to the very early days back in 2012 when I started here. Would be that I suppose taking on anything new, be it at work or in my own personal life, but any type of new project or anything, I generally don't really tend to have any fear around it. You know, like even if it's something like I remember before I signed up for the masters, I just thought, you know, it's going to be as I did with my level 6, my level 7, my level 8. There'll be a clear path of progression there. There'll be a number of steps, number of modules. You do them to the best of your ability, and you'll come out the other side of it. And it's the same now, considering something maybe hopefully in the next few years, like a PhD, where you have the confidence in yourself. And this comes, I believe, from my early time in back here when I came back here to start in 2012. Because there's always like there's fantastic communication, number one, from the lecturers, all right, and they understand that, particularly in part-time, that you're working by day, you might be trying to balance family, your home life, everything else that's going on with it, and here you are in the middle of it, trying to sit down in a college environment 1, 2, 3 evenings a week, or whatever the case may be, do assignments and do everything else with it. So I suppose the level of understanding that comes from MTU and from the lecturers here and from the faculty, it gives you the confidence then, the confidence in yourself to think, well, you know, I can do this and I can do the next thing and I can do the next thing. Like similar to Linda, I find myself sitting down in the evenings looking at courses thinking, I wonder what will I do next? Like, you know, or will I do like a special award level 8 just to fill the gap maybe in the next couple of months while I'm waiting to do something else. And I think that all comes from here, like, you know, that in a kind of, it flows into the student and it gives you that confidence and it gives you that I suppose maybe kind of a hope as well for the future, to think that maybe I'm not finished yet, you know, I might do more, maybe I might be finished, you know, but it's certainly for me, it comes from that, in where I think that I can do more, I probably will do more. Yeah.
You're probably going to be held to that now. You'll walk out your office door and somebody will be standing there with a contract for a PhD.
I think before I said PhD, I put probably in every time. Yeah.
That's your contract. You've got to get out of the jail-free card there.
I'm waiting to nothing yet.
What you said is the impact on you kind of professionally or your career path?
For me, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. No, well, mine is actually a lot more tangible, because, you know, it's not to compare, but like when you work for yourself solely, like every euro that you generate, you are the engine behind that, fueling that. And for me, the biggest thing that I learned was like the word learn. You have to learn before you can drop that L and earn, you know. You really need to be sure when you're charging people. So there's a bit of self-worth in that you have to figure out, well, what can I charge people, or what am I worth? And then you think of the years you put in studying. So like, not only if you were applying for a job, say to be employed by someone, that piece of paper definitely can be a prerequisite that you need to have before you're even eligible to apply. But when you're self-employed, like that is the kind of academic proof that people will need before they will invest in me to help them develop them, you know? So like, for me, it's very much it was a pathway for me to be able to, you know, prove my worth and not be questioning that, because I put the hard work in. So like, you know, if you want to change careers or you want to kind of go out on your own, there are situations where they don't need an academic piece of paper, but there's also other situations that it's just that bit of proof that people need, that you've done the work and you've learned the theory behind it as well as the experience and the practice, you know. So that does matter out in the world to people.
And I suppose just to for people that aren't really aware, your master's is directly related, I suppose, into what you do for your career now. Like that's, yes, you're running your own business in the area, yeah, of communications and or in digital media. So that, I suppose, it's directly related to the master's that you did. So,
and before I got into like, before this business was like, my business is up to your eyes, but before that, when I first came out of college with that kind of knowledge now that like, there was this person over here who works for newspapers or runs events or is a PR professional. And then I thought there was a huge gap between me and that role. But like after coming through the program, I realized actually I'm all of that. I just need to decide which direction I take that. And that definitely gave me the power to go, well, I'm going to approach this person to do an event, or I'm going to write for this. You know, it really does give you the power and the proof to say, not only do I believe I can, but now this piece of paper also says I more than can, you know, so it just becomes, it's just kind of the compound effect, isn't it? That's really what it's about.
Okay, so I've one more final question that we can fit in because we're actually doing very well on time. I'm very impressed. So the last one would be, if looking back now and you've had that time to reflect, and you're all still very busy, let's be honest about it, but you've had a bit of time to reflect on the experience and what you've got out of it. Would you do anything differently now if you were to make the decision all over again on going back to education? Linda?
Not really. Like it is addictive, and like Colin says, you know, like, oh, maybe I should do, like, you give out about it when you're doing it. I'm dead, I nearly can't go anymore, like, and then I'm kind of going, oh, maybe I could do PhD.
That's just when your deadlines are looming for your assignments, you start questioning everything.
I think, look, it's easier said than done. You know, hindsight is a great thing, but I suppose having the self-belief and the self-worth, you know it, you know what I mean? Like, obviously you're learning lots, but you know you've the capabilities, you know, but it's just to believe and like just do it. And if it doesn't work out, try something else. Again, I'm still always back to life is not linear. We have so many different paths that we can take to accomplish what we want to accomplish. You know, when you leave school, you're very young, being asked to make a decision about the rest of your life. I mean, who in God's name knows exactly what they want to do when they're 17 or 18? So try it. You've nothing to lose and everything to gain. So I don't think there's anything I would change. I'd probably do exactly the same thing again. I'd probably still have the, oh my God, I'm not good enough, or oh my God, I'm able to do this. You know, I think you have to go through that, or else there's no learning.
It got you to where you are. So
yeah, you if you went in and said, oh, everything's wonderful and it's going to be smooth sailing, then, you know, you're getting the basic skills, but you have to evolve as a person as well. So,
Colin, is there anything you do differently?
The only thing I would do differently, I mentioned a while ago, like I started back here in 2012, and the only thing I could honestly say that I would do differently is I would have come back 2 years earlier when I first started considering it. 2010, I remember looking at the prospectus, thinking, yeah, I don't know, and going to all the different reservations going around my head that I spoke about a while ago. It came to 2011 then, and it was similar. You know, I was thinking, yeah, 2011 is going to be the year I'm going to do it this year. And then when it came to time again, we'll say for enrolling or whatever, I thought, you know, no, I'm just going to leave it now till next year, and probably made up a few excuses to myself to justify why I should wait another year. And then came to 2012 and thought a couple of weeks, and, you know, I should have done this 2 years ago. And I still believe that, you know, looking back now, 10 years later, thinking if I'd gone back that 2 years earlier when I first thought about it, I wonder, you know, could I have a bit more done now, or would it have made any difference? But yeah, I'd have gone back earlier. Yeah.
So I suppose it probably links back to what you said about the barriers and the fear. If you would have just had that insight or that feeling of that first night when you realized that everything was so welcoming and everyone was there for the same reason, if you had that, you probably would have took that jump in 2010 instead.
Exactly. Yeah, without a doubt.
Virginia, anything you would have done differently?
More so, I think when I was finished the qualification, obviously you take a break and go, right, that was a lot. Let me take a breath. But, you know, the way we have, I think we're all guilty of this, like, I'd have collapsed time a bit is what I mean, right? So what I mean by that is, okay, now that I have this qualification, I'm going to wait till I get X to do Y. And we keep putting a new hurdle ahead of us instead of saying, right, I have this now, just move with it. Like we do compare ourselves, and I always say we should our pants a bit, like we kind of go, I should do this now, and I have the qualification, but I should go and work in a PR agency for a few years first, just to further prove that I am good enough, you know. So we do all of these things, when in fact I'm the same person that I was when I left with the qualification. I just had to move a bit quicker. Again, easier said than done, and we go through our own self-doubt and all the rest of it, but I definitely would have acted sooner Like the things I wanted to do that I'm doing now, I wanted to do them then too. I just didn't keep moving. So that was a bit of just a small regret. But in terms of the actual course itself, I don't really have any regrets. But I would say that like the regret I had initially when I looked, you know, when you go on and you'll probably be guilty of doing it if you're watching this, you'll be like, oh, sure, I'll go on and have a look at what the learning outcomes are and what the module entails. And, you know, when I looked at those on a screen, I was like, oh, no, I won't be able for that. But like when you speak to a person and you get to the course coordinator, that's when you realize that's actually a handrail. I have somebody that can handle my madness and help me through and guide. Like that person is going to shepherd me through the woods and get me out the other side. And that's the thing you don't see on a landing page, or you don't kind of get to feel really when you're looking at it and exploring what course will I do. So like that is a big part of MTU CIT. That is one of their unique things, that the contact and engagement is high. You know, it's really high. And I didn't realize that till I stepped out and, you know, other colleges and bigger colleges or whatever, you realize like I can pick up, I still do, like I still have mad conversations with my lecturers from then, or like if I have an idea or he has an idea, it's a lovely lifelong relationship and mutually beneficial in that we all love the same things. And I don't have that. I mightn't have had the access to that network before, you know. So
yeah, that's great to hear actually. And I would I definitely echo that. I think that it's very welcoming, and what you're deciphering yourself and sort of building it up in your head, a simple kind of a call just to talk through that, and maybe some real life examples, and they might talk about a real life project, can just kind of bring it home a little bit more and say, actually, that's what I will actually be doing. And that's very achievable for me. You know?
And I think as well, when you start the course, you think you're in there on your own a bit. So not even outside of the lectures, you're going, I'm going in to do a course and oh, I'm going to have to do all this. But you get huge support from your classmates. I think it's very different to, like I did UCC as well, and it's just totally different style. So you work as a group, you collaborate as a group, you know, you're not on your own, you share ideas, you know, so even your classmates can be hugely supportive as well, you know, and because the classes aren't huge either, you become like a little knit family. And like Virginia, I'm on to my lecturers meeting for coffee, having a laugh, but oh my God, you know, it's so different what you believe as a younger person, you know, what the teachers up here and, you know, what they say is gold and all that kind of stuff, you know, it's a relationship, it's a friendship.
And the other, the other one thing I suppose that is kind of glaring as well, and I think things have even got better since I left. But like when you go into the world, like kids come out of college and mature students come out of college, and just because they have the piece of paper, the world expects them to know everything and have all this experience that they couldn't possibly have got. But now that, and even when I was there, like we did live like pitches and live projects, that the experience was invaluable because I got that real world industry experience, but within the safety net, or, you know, in the safe space that it was guided and supported, but it still gave me the experience or the opportunity to kind of test that out before I had to go into the big bad world.
We'll finish on this, Colin, because we'll get to a couple of the questions and then we'll close so people can go up and have their lunch.
Sure. Yeah, no, just similar there to what Linda and Virginia were talking about. I suppose that like another maybe incorrect preconception that I would have had before I came back was that there might have been a distinction maybe between part-time and full-time learners. And, you know, I mean, I would have thought maybe coming back that only being here by evening, or am I going to be maybe getting something less than what the full-time learners are going to be getting? But I think like you were talking there about, Linda, how you use sometimes the lecturers almost as a crutch, you know, you can talk to them and like kind of gain from all the knowledge that they have. But I think a lot of that comes from the understanding that the lecturers have here about the fact that we're here, we're part-time, we're trying to juggle everything. And just that there's so much else going on, and there's so many hesitations that people have, and there's so many I suppose preconceptions that people might have, that sometimes you need to be sure that the environment that you're in, like here in MTU, that you're understood, you know, and that you might do things differently maybe to the daytime group or whatever, or maybe your group dynamic in the class that you're in might be slightly different. But it does, exactly, Linda, I agree, like it all becomes a very tight, close-knit group, you know, you all end up becoming friends in the lecture as well. There's no gradient, like, you know, which is it's very it's very reaffirming then when you're the learner, you know, when you're here and you're sitting on that side of the desk, to know that this is the type of environment I'm in, where all of that kind of thing is embraced, you know.
Okay, so we have one question in there. Well, there was another couple, but they were answered offline, so we're okay. And I think you answered them in some of the session as well. So there's a question here saying it's, and I think you've touched on this with the whole, like, what would you do differently? But it's specifically, they said it's so interesting to hear all of your journeys as speakers. I wanted to ask, given you have all gone back to education while working, in some cases after a long period, are there any tips you would now give to your former self that you wish you had known before you started? Essentially, any learnings that would have had made your journey back to education that bit easier. I think you've touched on a lot of that, but is there any specific tips, I suppose, to somebody, to you 10 years ago?
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of my thesis, what I set out to do. And I can remember Zed saying, God, Linda, I think you're, and he wasn't my supervisor. And I remember him saying, God, you're doing an awful lot there, you know. And I was like, no, it's grand. And as you were saying about the 2,000 words, I was actually embarrassed dropping off my thesis because it was that thick. My appendices were probably about 2,000 pages. You know, I suppose I killed myself basically. I kind of did too much probably, and I put myself under too much pressure. So I think the tip would be, if you can try and get the balance right, because you are working full time. Well, most people might be working full time when they're doing a part-time course, and to be realistic and not to put too much pressure on yourself, because I put too much pressure on myself. And I don't know if that came because I was coming from a science background or not. You know, when you looked, yeah, I don't really know. I think it was just getting the balance right was probably is the tip, not to kill yourself in the process.
Colin, besides the tip of go back, if you're thinking about it, don't doubt yourself and go back that bit earlier. Do you have anything else?
I suppose other than that, just trust in yourself, but more importantly, trust in the process, you know, because I mean, thousands have gone before you and thousands will come after you. And it's not something to be intimidated by, you know, looking at the prospectus or looking at the website thinking, oh, I'm never going to be able for this, you know. Trust in yourself, but trust in the process, because that's what MTU is here for. It's to take you from being someone that doesn't have this qualification or this certification to someone who does. And they look after all the steps in between. All they need is your input and your effort. And as long as you can do that and hold up to your end of the agreement, the reward will be there for you at the end.
Brilliant. Virginia, our final
mine is a little bit harder, I'm sorry to say, but you're giving your time to Netflix. You're giving your time to Instagram, darlings. Give the time to yourself, because it's amazing if you only have 1 hour and you have an assignment to do, how that focuses the mind is unbelievable. When you have a hungry child and an assignment to hand in, you know, you can get it done, but you have to actually take a little bit of accountability first and go, right, I can commit to this, but I do need to make a few changes. I might have to get up an hour earlier or work through my lunch. It's possible, but you need to kind of make a commitment to yourself first, and that is possible. It's time management, you know. We all have the same amount of hours, we just give it to different things. So give it to yourself. I think
that's that. And I think everyone could probably relate to that a bit as well. So that's a great timing, guys. I'm very impressed by all of us, really. So it's 5 minutes to go there, but I'm going to close it off. So my only problem now is I'm considering what step one program I'm going to sign up to next, whether it be a special purpose award or a certificate, because I certainly feel really motivated. So I want to say thanks to Jared, Pat and Louise for supporting the webinar, and also to all the staff across the faculty who recommended some amazing graduates for this panel, as you can actually see in front of me here. And then a particular thank you to you guys, our panel speakers, who have been so generous with your time and sharing your experiences, holding nothing back really. And finally, to all the attendees here today, we hope you have taken something away from the webinar and look forward to welcoming you to all the MTU Business Academy future events. So thanks again, guys. I feel really motivated now. Going into my lunch break, I'll start Googling programs to do next. So thanks for your time and thanks for having me here.
Thank you.
Very much.
Pleasure.